Hi, welcome to our episode 6 of the Growing Together series. Anne and I are excited to be able to talk to you today about screens and the developing brain. We want to let you know that this is a guilt-free talk. We understand that screens show up in real life and in real classrooms. So I am Gracia Holtz. I'm a speech-language pathologist here at the Parent-Infant Program of Henrico.
And I'm Ann Christopher. I'm an occupational therapist with Henrico County's Early Intervention Program.
So we have some quick housekeeping as usual. We have the QR code for our information for early intervention referrals. This is something that you can share with families if you are giving them information about our program. And we also have the link that feel free to copy it now or take a screenshot for the form to complete after you are finished with the episode for your certificate of completion, which is super important, but also all of the valuable feedback that you provide. We really do appreciate and would love for you to continue to leave us some information and some suggestions. So I have something to show you.
Y'all ready for this?
And did you notice anything about that little clip?
Oh, I saw all those children playing with toys and doing fun activities, and there was not a screen in sight.
That is right. So many things we can do without screens. So we're going to talk about that. And what is our agenda today?
We are going to talk about how important relationships are to the developing brain and also the impact of screens on the developing brain. We're going to talk about something called serve and return, and we will talk about things to do other than watching a screen.
All right, great. So we talked a little bit about the importance of relationships in the developing brains of babies and toddlers and why relationships matter. So what's important to know is that babies and toddlers build brains through these relationships. When we expose babies to screens, these relationships are often replaced by the screens, and we are not providing them with the movement and play and interaction that they need for their brain to develop appropriately, these back and forth interactions. So today we're going to be talking about why screens have an impact on the brain and what we can do instead to help build those relationships. And again, we want to emphasize this is not about shaming. It really is just about giving you the information that we know and feel is important.
Well, let's look at the guidelines. The American Academy of Pediatrics suggests under 18 months for no screen time except a video chat. Toddlers, they recommend high quality intentional screen time with an adult, and preschool up to about an hour a day of the high quality screen time. The World Health Organization suggests no screen time for 0 to 1 year olds, and for 2-year-olds less than an hour a day.
So screens are a trade-off. What do we mean by that, Anne?
Screens replace things. They replace floor time, movement, peer interaction, and also just playing and looking at books and just engaging with others. Those back and forth movements get lost. The back and forth moments get lost where we communicate with the children. And those back and forth moments are the foundation for language, attention, and regulation.
Great. Okay. So here's the why. This is what screens can change when we're talking about the developing brain. So I'm going to refer back to our slide on sensory processing, our episode, And do you remember which episode that was? We talked about motor planning or sensory processing.
I think it was 5.
I think it
4.
was. I think it was 4 or 5. But if you look back, you'll see we talked a lot about sensory behaviors and sensory seeking. So when we're talking about what screens can change, we want to let you know that more early screen exposure is linked with more sensory processing differences, such as sensory seeking behaviors. So we need to say this carefully, that screens do not cause every attention or sensory issue, but the research does show that more screen exposure, especially in those early years of life, are linked with higher odds of later sensory processing differences, and like I said, sensory seeking. We also have research that shows that when babies play with those electronic toys, the VTEX with the lights and the sounds and the buttons, adults around them will talk less. And therefore, that will impact those back and forth interactions. So if we want calmer attention and better regulation, we need to be really mindful of those inputs. So without the right human interaction and back and forth play, that child's development will be impacted. So Anne, if you could explain this graphic about high energy versus low energy and what we're really saying here.
Well, you just mentioned that the best activities for developing brains are human interaction and books and play and back and forth interactions. And those go under the category of the low impact sensory input activities. Up on our screen here, we've got low and high, and so low impact sensory stimulation are those activities that we want to foster. The high sensory input activities are the screens and the phones and the VTech games. Those are the things that kind of impact our ability to communicate with the child and may cause some issues later on.
And so when children are exposed to these high impact stimulation, what does that output usually look like on their end? How does that impact their behaviors?
We are going to talk about that in the next slide. Let's move on, and we're going to talk about the impact of screens in the classroom.
All right.
You might see kids that need louder and faster input to stay engaged. Children might have problems when you turn off the screen. You might find tantrums or meltdowns because they just don't know what to do with themselves if that screen is not on. Transition into books or playtime or meal times or nap times can be harder. And those kids often won't really lock into your face and what you're saying. And so that can really affect their listening to you and following your instructions.
It's almost like they're just bored with normal input, normal calm input.
Right.
So that kind of leads us to these fast, loud, fast-cut cartoons, as we call them. And I'm kind of thinking about CoComelon. Would you say that would describe CoComelon? Yeah. Okay. And so how are these problematic?
These cartoons are designed to grab children's attention and to keep it. They pay a lot of money to have the attention really get grabbed. And so, we know the kids love these shows because they are kind of addictive, right? We know that the kids like it, but the concern is that it can train the brain to expect all of that movement and excitement. So then real life feels boring. Mm-hmm. The slower activities, books and conversation can feel boring. So those shows, they're not evil. We can say that you can use them on occasion, but we need to use them cautiously, carefully, and intentionally. I want to keep it short, just a brief amount of a screen like that. And if we do use a screen, something calmer and slower is better for children, especially toddlers. So, CoComelon is really kind of a high energy thing, and it's just not the best.
Very activating.
So
yeah.
we know that the kids love it, and if the parents say, well, but my child loves it, and we understand that, but really our goal is for balance. So we want your child to also love to play with toys and interact with people and look at books. So we want to be able to have a balance between watching a screen but also playing without needing that nonstop stimulation.
Right. So let's go back to what we mean when we're talking about this kind of back and forth. There's actually a term for it. It's called serve and return. And when I think of serve and return, I actually think of a game of tennis or ping pong where somebody serves and then somebody returns. And then when we're thinking about language and conversation, that serve and return kind of happens back and forth for longer stretches of time when we're having conversation. So serve and return, when we're talking about these babies and toddlers, is what happens when that baby or child serves. They're giving you a look, they're giving you a sound, a gesture, a point. They're basically getting your attention because they have something to share. They have something that they're trying to communicate. And ideally, the adult will then will return by responding right away, matching what the child is saying, or even expanding on what they're saying. And again, as the child's language continues to develop, that serve and return, that kind of ping-ponging will happen for longer periods. And so this back and forth really is what builds foundations for learning language and regulation.
You remember, Gracia, that babies learn best when their communication changes what happens next.
That's right.
So when a real person responds to the baby, they learn that their actions have impact.
Have meaning.
Yes.
So I have seen, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but when we talk about serve and return, it works both ways, right, Anne?
Right.
So if a baby is serving and a parent is not responding because they happen to be on their device or focused on their screen, whatever that might be, their computer if they're working from home, that baby is serving and they're learning that, gosh, nobody's responding. Therefore, what I am trying to convey or communicate is just meaningless. What's the point?
Right. How frustrating is it when you're trying to talk to somebody and they're on their phone and you're like, they're not even listening to me.
Exactly.
Babies feel the same way.
Exactly. So here's Harvard with their video really talking about what they mean by serve and return, and hopefully this will give you a little more information.
The key to forming strong brain architecture is what's known as serve and return interaction with adults. In this developmental game, new neural connections form in the brain as young children instinctively serve through babbling, facial expressions, and gestures. And adults return the serve, responding in a very directed, meaningful way. It starts very early in life when a baby coos and the adult interacts and directs the baby's attention to a face or hand. This interaction forms the foundation of brain architecture upon which all future development will be built. It helps create neural connections between all the different areas of the brain, building the emotional and cognitive skills children need in life. For example, here's how it works for literacy and language skills. When the baby sees an object, the adult says its name. This makes connections in the baby's brain between particular sounds and their corresponding objects. Later, adults show young children that those objects and sounds can also be represented by marks on a page. With continued support from adults, children then learn how to decipher writing and eventually to write themselves. Each stage builds on what came before. Ensuring that children have adult caregivers who consistently engage in serve and return interaction, beginning in infancy, builds a foundation in the brain for all the learning, behavior, and health that follow.
Okay, so serve and return is very, very important, and that learning really does not happen in one direction. So we have television shows, and that families are kind of again, if you think about the marketing that goes into it and the money that's paid, to really feel that this show is really educational. My child is learning from that. I'm thinking of shows like Miss Rachel, right?
Right.
So what happens here when a child is watching Miss Rachel and kind of in keeping with the serve and return?
Right. So the key idea is one-way versus two-way learning. So young children learn best from real people and real interactions, and that is a two-way learning process. When the television is Miss Rachel or whatever is doing their thing and they say, oh, look, a ball, that's just a one-way street. If the child responds with ball, the TV can't respond to them. So that's a one-way learning opportunity. And really the best way to learn is a two-way street. So learning from you, learning from peers, from parents, those are the best opportunities to learn. Even high-quality content of shows does not replace the serve and return.
Okay, so we can kind of fudge this a little bit where we can do something called co-view and convert.
Right. So when you watch a show, let's say we're going to watch Miss Rachel, and we're going to sit with the child, and the child's watching Miss Rachel, and she says something about the ball. Look for the ball. And if our child says ball, then let's pause the show, and we're gonna convert that into an activity that we can do together in a two-way street. So we're going to pause the show and say, that's right, that's a ball. Let's look at our ball. And we might even play with the ball or talk about the ball, expanding on the idea. So that's where we can convert that show into a real-life learning activity.
With a lot of serve and return.
That's right.
Yeah.
We want to give that serve and return and do that back and forth, not just watch the show.
Right. So in the next slide, we're going to show this beautiful example of serve and return. And we chose it not because they necessarily were watching a television show that the child liked, but it's really interesting. This was actually Dad's show. I think is it Empire?
It's Empire.
And it's the season finale. So you know that Dad has got to be really excited about watching his show. But watch how he so beautifully engages in serve and lots of serves, lots of returns throughout their watching the show together.
Right. That dad isn't just focused on that screen and ignoring the child
That's
serving,
right. That's right.
He's returning, and it's really great.
Yeah. It's
Okay. They work on that, right? Yes. Okay. Did you understand it though? No. Okay. All right. Come on. Oh, no. Not this one. This is now. Yeah, that's the last one. That's what I was wondering. I don't know what they're gonna do next season because they did some stuff this time. Exactly what I was thinking. Oh yeah. Right, don't bring that in. You know what I'm saying? Don't do the same stuff. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I see that. Yeah. Like go somewhere else with that. Don't bring here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what I said. He did like, you know what I'm saying? I was like, what in the world? Don't do it here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Really? I thought the same thing. We think a lot alike, huh? Oh, that's crazy. Right.
I'm telling you, I don't know if you can hear us, but Ann and I don't know how many times we've seen this video, but we cannot stop laughing. This little guy, he has got the gift of gab. But Dad, what a sport. I mean, he just kept it going. So this is ideal. And obviously in your busy classrooms, this kind of, serve and return, it might be a little challenging, but this is really what kids crave, this back and forth, being able to look at an adult and have them speak back to them, and to know that what they're saying, even if it's not making a lot of sense, is making sense on some level to that parent or caregiver. So now let's go to what studies show or what studies are finding about screen time. So what we know is that early screen time is linked with poor developmental outcomes later. So doctors aren't just saying no screen before 2 or 3. There's research that shows that it can impact development. We also know that higher screen exposure is linked with weaker language measures, and many studies show this. Some brain imaging studies find differences in white matter linked with higher screen use. So it's actually, we know that some research is showing that screens can actually change the brain, physiologically change the brain. So that's important for us to know.
Right. Sleep is another area that can have an impact from screens. Studies link screen exposure with less sleep in infants and toddlers. And really, sleep is not a luxury. Sleep is a part of regulation and attention. We need our children to sleep, and we need to sleep too. So around in your daycare classrooms, it would be great to avoid screen use around nap routines. You can use books, songs, and predictable, calm routines instead to encourage sleep in the classroom.
Makes me think about how even as adults we're told to keep our phones and iPads away from us as we get into bed.
That's
because
right.
they can overstimulate us and impact our sleep. So the same is true for kids, obviously. So what are some classroom routines, Anne, that can help everybody?
Right. Ideally, the classroom would be a screen-free zone, especially avoiding background TV. A lot of people feel like that TV in the background, maybe with music or whatever, is okay. But really, background TV is not any better.
No.
If screens are used at all, it would be great to keep it intentional and brief and have your adult support of what is happening on the screen. The background screens, so to speak, they reduce talk and play. They distract children from what they're doing.
Right.
And it's hard to listen to the teacher if there's background noise from music and such.
And this is important to note. There are those kids that they have TV on all day at home, and they come to school and it's on, and that's what they know, and that's where they feel safe and calm. If you are finding that there is a child in your class that needs that, we call that default television on all day, and when you turn it off or when you try to transition and they are really struggling, that could be an indicator that that child might have something that is impacting development, and they might be somebody that you would want to talk to the family about, maybe sending our way so that we could maybe see if there's a reason that they are not engaging with other people or having a hard time with those transitions. But yes, the screen-free, especially background screens in the classroom, should be the default. So, and here we go. What are some alternatives to screens in a nutshell?
Everything is an alternative to screens.
Anything.
Yes.
And so many things that are just free, right? Like, it doesn't cost a lot of money to keep kids away from screens.
Right. Music is great, bubbles, dancing, outside.
Yeah,
outside
right?
is such a great option.
Yes.
Even when it's cold, kids just need to be outside. They need to be moving. It helps them regulate their bodies. And so really all of the activities that you could think of would be great to swap out for the screen. Just structure and predictability help a child regulate as well.
Yeah. And these, activities can be the kind of the same if you think about centers or, having the same opportunities or the same materials available each day. You don't have to, do a lesson plan for every single day, but kids do get more out of the hands-on learning and playing with their peers than they would from watching, CoComelon in the background.
Right.
So we promise that coming next, Anne and I are going to do some episodes on some screen time alternatives using books and music. We are going to talk to you guys about how to use books and music to support play and regulation and early development. So we are going to model some routines and scripts and offer you some low prep materials. Again, just because we're turning the screen off doesn't mean we need to have anything fancy. And our goal is that we want to find those real alternatives that stick so that screens aren't the default.
Right. Music and books naturally create interaction.
They do.
So that's why they're so great. They involve turn-taking, movement, and connection.
And I would encourage any teacher who is feeling, that maybe their reading skills or maybe the way that they present a book is just a little too boring or flat or kids aren't paying attention, to go and watch one of the librarians do a story time.
Oh, wow. They're so great.
I learn from them every time that books don't have to just be reading, and they shouldn't be page by page,
right.
That you can make them interactive and fun and give kids the opportunity to move and be part of that. So now we get to our behavior detective screen, Anne. So we can look at this kind of being a behavior detective when it comes to screens in a couple of ways. We want to be thinking about whether or not, as I said, if there's a child in your class who is really their go-to is the screen and they cannot be pulled away from it, they can't transition without it, they can't separate from mom and dad without it. We need to look at these behaviors as a pattern. And so there could very well be a reason for this that has nothing to do with the fact that they just like TV.
Right.
They might really be struggling with anxiety or peer-to-peer social skills or language. They may have some language differences that might need support.
Or their nervous system has just developed this need for this high intensity stimulation like TV if they get a screen all the time.
And so we want to be mindful that this behavior of needing the TV is not the child's fault, right?
Right.
So we don't want to shame them or to yell at them for watching too much TV.
Right.
Of course, we wouldn't yell at them, but we might want to be thinking about, with our detective hat on, why is this child really drawn to the TV? And then we also want to maybe use our detective kind of lens to think about why this child doesn't want and can't attend to sitting at the table or listening to a book. And as you said, their nervous system is not able to do that. So again, is this something that we at Early Intervention can support? Is it something that you could bring up to the therapists that come into your classroom? I think that would be something to consider.
Yes.
And the last piece about the behavior detective is being mindful of our own behaviors as caregivers when it comes to our need for screen. So now think about why you would reach for your phone or your tablet at night or Netflix. We want to calm down, right? And so we have maybe figured out that we can escape, right, through our screens. But when we are with children and they are looking to us not just as caregivers, but also as models of behavior, and we're showing them that, every time I'm feeling a certain way, I'm going to reach for my tablet or my screen or turn on the TV, whatever that might be. We're teaching them that's how it's done, instead of working through some challenges or some tough times. And also, if we're on our screen and the child is serving, we're not going to be able to return.
Right.
And that's sad for the child.
Yes.
It's telling them that what they say and what they're trying to initiate really isn't meaningful to us. Okay, so
if you remember one thing, just remember that screens cannot do serve and return. That is what people can do. So we know that we're just looking for progress. It's not going to be perfect. It's hard to make big drastic changes. So just try to make some gradual changes in your classroom if you do use the television. And just really try to protect those back and forth moments and give children as much of that as you can.
Okay, so
promise. We will be.
We are going to we had some questions there that for whatever reason that was a little glitch on that slide. But I think that all of those questions that were on that slide, we really did answer as we went through. If parents have any concerns about any of the information that we have shared with you in this presentation, have them reach out to us. There is a lot of information about screens in the developing brain online. Encourage anybody to check it out. Again, Harvard has some really great resources, YouTube videos.
Yes.
And so a lot of studies out there. So just remembering to, if parents have some concerns, not obviously about screens, but if you are going to be talking to the family about your concerns related to a child's development, language, sensory, motor, just remember to find the right time and setting. Use that neutral language. Ask what works at home. Start with that child's strengths and share the strategies that work in class. And always be empathetic. So we are here to help. Again, our QR code is embedded in this slide. Our referral line is here. And Ann and I are always available, again, by email or phone to answer any questions that you might have.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us with Growing Together, episode 6.
Yes.
Remember to check out all of our other episodes if you haven't seen them yet.
And please complete that form. I will go ahead and embed that link into the show notes so that you can get your certificate of completion. If you need any help with that, feel free to reach out. I know there's a couple of you that know exactly how to do that, so I'm here to help. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.